Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, here we are, an early show, because we want to be able to make sure we get this guest in, Brandon Crisp, who's running for city council for the open seat. And we're going to ask him what possessed him to do it. From what we were talking about prior, you had to talk your wife into it a little bit, but there you go. Yes. Just for transparency's sake, I was the former teacher of his wife, Irma Vidic, and I'm sure she's quite as lively now as she was then.
she's something.
Yeah, she is. She's got a lot of personality. Did y'all meet here in Texas?
No. So she lived in Atlanta whenever we met. She had a job promotion that moved her to Atlanta.
Right. Redfin, wasn't it?
Yeah, Redfin.
Right.
We met, funny enough, on a dating app.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not have lied a little bit about my person, my height, my how much I had traveled.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. I was talking to the Pope the other day. Yeah, I got it. We have these, those dating apps are, well, they give you a little latitude on your biography. Let's put it that way.
A little bit, yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about what he thinks Burleson is good for. Well, not good for. I mean, what it's really strong about, and what its needs are, and what possessed him to do this, and also his background and whatnot. But first, let's just jump into the ad so we get right to the other stuff. Thank you to Our Place and Otto. Have you ever been to Our Place by any chance?
No, actually.
You're the first person I've asked that in a long, long time that said that you need to go.
I got contacted just last night by somebody wanting to set up a pancake eating contest between the candidates at Our Place with Otto. So
wait, was it Otto that contacted you?
No, it was a guy named Matt.
Okay.
So.
Well, okay, a pancake eating contest. Well, if that doesn't
sounds like something, right?
Well, it's a qualification we expect here in Burleson, that you can pound down the pancakes. But there's a place to do it. They're really good. It's really good food. And if you ever, it's a great place for like breakfast and lunch. And so you can take Irma there for that, and and they have really good pies as well. They make their own pies. He also is opening up Gina's Pizza within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Now, there it is. That's the interior. And there we are, showing on the TV screen. Gina's Pizza will probably open in, I'm going to say, within about 10 days. And old-time Burlesonians know Gina's. It was been there before I've been here, and I've been here about 32 years.
Yeah, I pass by it every day taking my son to daycare. So.
Okay. Yeah, you get, it's going to be really, really good. Also, Wild Cigar over on the Standard. Do you smoke cigars?
I partake every now and then.
That's the place to get them then, because they have a really varied, large humidor and all these different products. And, I've had him on the show, the owner, Chris, on the show, and it's like, it's the cigar is just more than the smoke. I mean, they got all these various brands, textures, flavors, whatever. It's amazing. And it's like, it's a cigar expert. It's like a wine expert.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little bit of head's a little clogged up from all the weather. But anyway, Wild Cigar also is a nice bar. It's a nice quiet place. Do a little business, maybe do a little meet and greet over there. That'd be great. Wild Cigar over at the Standard. Also, Tiffany Nico, we were going to have her on last Tuesday, but Facebook was down. And it's really ironic, because only twice since Taylor and I have been doing this has Facebook been down and we couldn't do a show. And both times with Tiffany was the guest. I mean, maybe she's having some bad luck. I don't know. But anyway, she Local Life magazine. If you want to advertise to about 30,000 people, including a lot of the voters, that's a good place to do it. And you can talk to her, and because a lot of the candidates will use her services. All right, and so 30,000 homes, plus they're in several retail stores, and so people will browse them while they're waiting on something. Cool. So it's a really good magazine. Also, she's going to be doing the St. Patty's Day pub crawl on March 16th, a week from Saturday. This is going to be a very busy time. March, April, and May is a really busy time here in Burleson for events, fundraisers, all the above. On March 16th, St. Patty's Day pub crawl. Give it a holler. It's being sponsored by several people that y'all all know, including, I'm trying to see, Lone Star Grill. Yeah, it is Fresco's, Regal Mambo, Heim. Several places are sponsoring this thing. So check out her page for the St. Patty's Day pub crawl. She puts on events for the city, and they're always really well done. Also, Take you to Southern Jim. You got to take Irma to Southern Jim.
Funny enough, I actually, whenever she gets back from her business trip, I need to take her engagement ring. It needs to be resized. So.
Yeah, well,
and we actually talked about that.
Well, my wife works there.
Yep.
All right, and so there's 2 Robins there. So if you go in there and ask for Robin, well, one or 2. So just ask for Robin Allard, okay, and she'll help you out. But they're open 4 days a week and most Saturdays. And I tell you, people come a long way for Southern Jim. I mean, I've been surprised a little bit how far people drive just because they know Gala and use their services. So Southern Jim also on May 4th, they're having a big Kentucky Derby day. Gala's into horse racing, and so they're going to have a big Kentucky Derby party that day. That's a big day. That's the election day, as you probably know. And also, Lisa Schwartz is having a Crazy Eights City on the Hill. So it's going to be a real busy day, but you can make all 3 pretty easily. There it is, City on the Hill Festival, May 4th, 2024, at the Burleson High School parking lot. Also, 2 maids. With 2 maids cleaning, what they'll do is, you contract them out, they do the job, and then they're paid based on the quality of the job. You rate them. And so it isn't so much just a straight rate. It's you go and, they do the job, and you tell them how well they did, and that's how they get paid. So you're going to have a pretty motivated group of people there. And and Brenda Ramirez that business is just exploding. I saw her yesterday, and they're doing really well. They do the cleaning over at the Windmiller building, so they're getting lots of business. So at twomaidscleaning.com/Burleson or at 817-764-0733. And our friends Camco, oh no, I forgot them, Old Pro. I'm too big a hurry. Old Pro Roofing, John Williams, 817, yeah, it is, 817-734-2756. Now, we had some weather here. If you had some weather last night, particularly I was hearing it was on the west side, and in Joshua, they had some heavier weather than I had. But we had a lot of weather. If you had some roofing issues or hail or anything like that, call John at 817-734-2756, and he'll come out and inspect your roof and tell you if you're good to go or not. And no upsell, no doomsday scenarios. He'll tell you the straight truth. So call John again, 817-734-2756. He's going to be pretty busy the next couple of weeks. Also, now we can talk to Camco. What exactly is your line of work? Aren't you in real estate in some manner?
No.
Oh, I know Irma was.
She was and kind of is still. Yeah.
Okay, well, these 2 ladies have been doing mortgage brokerage for 20 years for various different companies, and they said that we could have our own company because, we know what we're doing. And I've used them twice for refinancing. So Sammy Campbell, 817-778-4592, and Candy Gow at 817-925-2661. Give them a holler. They know what's going on with the rates. I don't. It's hard to keep track with all this stuff. But there you go. Do we have any other nonprofits, Taylor? I don't know.
I think the ones we had have already passed.
We already passed. Okay. So, Mr. Chris, let's talk. First of all, what do you do for a living?
I actually am in e-commerce tech. I do custom application development and consulting for some of the world's largest CPG companies or consumer packaged goods companies.
Really? Do you work out of the house, or do you have a
Yeah, I work remotely. My company is, they're based out of a little city called New Hope, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. But yeah, I started working with them right at the end of 2019 and been with them ever since.
But how long you lived in Burleson? I know for a while you lived in Georgia.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Georgia for 28 years of my life. Met Irma. She brought me to Texas. That was kind of the first thing she said on our first date was, by the way, we're going to move back to Texas.
Oh, wait. On the first date, she already was making plans for the both of you?
She was,
That's about right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's her, right? So we moved to Texas January of 2020. Funny enough, the first day we ever lived in Texas, well, me for the first time, her again, it snowed after her telling me it never snows in Texas.
It really doesn't very often, yeah. So how do you like Texas?
I love it. I thinking back on my life, I feel like I was always going to end up in Texas. For some reason, I was just surrounded by Texans every single step of my life. My neighbors, my teachers.
Blessing. Yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah, because they tell you, which I understand now.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, yeah, I live in Texas, and they're like, why are you telling me? So I want to.
But it's not so bad, is it?
No, I love the state. You know, there are things, you know, obviously that you want to change about any place you live in. But compared to where I grew up in Georgia, the amount of opportunity in Texas is just astounding.
Yeah, it is.
There's zero upward mobility where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought, from what I've read, I thought Georgia was one of the economic hotspots.
I mean, it may be for some places, not where my hometown is.
Which hometown?
So it's a tiny little town in North Georgia called Chatsworth. It's right next to this town called Dalton, which they are self-proclaimed the carpet capital of the world.
I've heard of Dalton.
Yeah. Our town has, as of the 2020 census, I think it was 4,100 people. The county itself has 37,000. So Burleson, you know, by itself has more people than my entire county that I grew up in. Which whenever I first met Irma, she was like, "Oh yeah, my town's small," and I'm like, "It's not smaller than mine."
No.
And it was right around that time that country song came out that was like, you know, my town's smaller than your town. So I kind of joked around with her about it.
Well, you know, the thing is, when your wife was a student here, I mean, we were growing, but the last decade and a half, we've really blown up.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like my hometown, as if you will. Not my hometown. It's the town I graduated high school from. I've lived in Burleson over half my life now, but you know, I go back there now and I don't recognize Plano at all. You know, and for her to come back from Georgia after being gone for a while, and you've never been here before, it's like 15 years has really made a difference in this town. We've really grown a bunch, and that's kind of leads into the issues that the city council faces.
Yep.
It's the growth issues. Now, I'm sure you've done your research and whatnot. Have you been involved in Burleson-related activities, shall we say, you know, related to the city of any kind, you know, or committees, groups, whatever?
Not in Burleson since I moved here. We actually moved. So when we first moved to Texas, we actually lived in Frisco.
Yes. Well, that was just a spot on the map.
It is a place. We moved to Burleson right whenever my son was about 2 months old. So for the last, you know, 2 years, I've been really focused on trying to kind of adjust and become a better father. Not only that, but, you know, try and put that all together and be a good husband at the same time. But now, you know, I'm at this age where it's still hard, but there's a lot less, you know, kind of, I guess I can say hand holding that you have to do. And now I'm getting to the point where it's like, what do I want him to see, right? What do I want him to see me as? And what I would love is for, as he grows up, you know, he sees that I'm an involved community member, and I'm, you know, really focused on bettering the lives of not only him, because he's obviously my number one, but everybody else, whoever I can, you know, help.
Well, it's a big jump to go, you know, become a new citizen. It's really interesting, though, that you want to serve so quickly. You know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of old time Burleson folks don't serve, you know, in various capacities, but you want to jump right into the mix, right?
That's what I do.
Well, that's what you do. Huh? Just so, from what your perspective of, particularly for somebody who's been from out of town, what do you see about Burleson that is attractive to you to make you want to serve?
Yeah. So one of the things I love the most about it is that it's still, even though it's growing, you alluded to the growth. I mean, I have right here, just between 2010 and 2020, there was a 29% increase in the population, which is huge. We're averaging right now like 3.5% increase per year, which is a lot. But the thing that I love about it is that even with all of that growth, it still just feels like home. It reminds me of some of the things that I loved most about my tiny hometown, but with the exception of there actually is a possibility of growth, a possibility of, you know, achieving more, a possibility of, you know, seeing people succeed and actually have that upward mobility in the neighborhood that you never saw in my hometown.
Yeah.
And I love that.
you're not going to turn my phone down here. Well, that's true. And I've lived here since 91. I taught here for 3 years prior to that. So I've been part of it, for, I don't know, do the math, since 1988. And Burleson was a small town. Probably you'd have been very familiar with that town, because it was a small town. Maybe a few more people than your hometown, but it was still a small town feel. There wasn't very many restaurants other than, 3 or 4 standards that everybody went to. Everybody knew each other, it seemed like. And then it's grown. Yet one of the things the city council has really striven to do is to try to keep the hometown continuity and community feel.
Yep.
Even if we're now past 50,000. And that has issues sometimes. It's hard to maintain that sometimes, because you are expanding a lot. And a lot of new people like yourself are coming in. How do you see yourself if you are elected? Be able. How are you going to resolve some of those issues?
Yeah, so I really kind of alluded to it in my first ever kind of post. I don't know all the answers. I don't pretend like I know all the answers, and even the answers that I know may be wrong. But one of the things that I do know that I'm going to rely on a lot is the city staff, right? I do, one of the things I did go to college for before I decided to go into my current line of work was a degree in public administration, specifically in governmental administration.
Where's that degree from?
Kennesaw State University. Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit north of Atlanta, about 25 minutes north of Atlanta. But got that degree because I was like, I really want to work in government. So I jumped into government right after that. I worked for the Georgia Department of Labor. I had a brief stint with the Georgia Department of Law. And I understood really quickly, not only in the classes that I took, but the positions that I had, that it's really the staff that gets stuff done.
Oh, absolutely.
We're obviously the council's important because you're the ones that, make the decisions. You're the ones that vote on the items that the people are going to see. And really you get the credit for it, but we're not
the blame.
We're not civil. Yeah, we're the blame. Yeah. But we're not civil engineers, right? We don't know how to build a road. We don't know what it's going to affect. Stuff, just all of that stuff. Just leads me back to I want to make sure that I'm relying on the staff, the appropriate staff, to help me understand. Like if somebody comes to me in Burleson and says, "Hey, I need this," then I can come to the appropriate staff member and say, "Hey, is this feasible? What needs to happen for this to get done? Or is this an issue for multiple people? What's the priority of this?" Right? Just all of that is how I hope that I can be successful.
Well, Burleson staff has a very well-earned reputation for being very professional and not competent. It's understating it. I mean, very good. Very strong. We have a very strong city staff, and the people that are on the council already or have served on the council will tell you that first thing is because they, as a council person, you're supposed to be an expert on everything, right?
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen, and you shouldn't strive to be an expert in everything. That's why you have staff. Yep. There's several things about this community, though, that because we are growing, there are issues. And one of the biggest is infrastructure. Yep. I don't know if you've looked into it a lot, but what has been your view about the issues related to infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously grew really fast and are still growing really fast. Mm-hmm. Kind of it's just, where we're located in the DFW Metroplex, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And, one of our biggest things right now that a lot of people have commented on is like traffic, which is a big piece of all of that. So I've already, kind of started looking into a couple of possible things that I can at least propose to try and help that issue.
Do you want to tell us what they are? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I have nice little stats that I've written down here.
Okay, good.
My little vote book.
Okay, go ahead.
But no, one of the ideas that I've kind of thought of and looked into. So actually, on Burleson's strategic plan, they've mentioned for the third quarter of 2024, the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, they want to start implementing ITS or intelligent traffic systems in a traffic management center to try to help the all of the red lights on like say Wilshire to really kind of just help solve some of the traffic issues. So I'm a very technology minded person, as you can imagine, given what I do. So I really kind of believe in the wonders and the possibilities of technology. So one of the things I've looked into is actually something that Google runs. It's called Google Greenlight. It's actually a system that they use with kind of like AI machine learning patterns, and it analyzes traffic patterns to try and help kind of optimize coordination of all of the traffic lights, try to help the timing of it. They've deployed it in a couple of cities so far, and they've seen up to a 30% reduction in stops, which would really help. Number one, if all of the red lights were not stopping you whenever they shouldn't all the time. So that's one of the things that I've kind of looked into, and those things can actually be implemented into pretty much existing infrastructure without a lot of work. So,
well, that's, the thing about infrastructure, like any other issue, is like there's this process of procedure, and people want their new roads right now.
Yep.
And so it's a real issue. One of the biggest issues, that a lot of people don't realize is that road on 174 is really something we can't do much with until we reach a certain size. And it particularly, it bogs down real heavily around the school administration building all the way past HEB. And that whole area, is even growing even more so. So it's kind of like a little traffic knot, and our hands are kind of tied somewhat. But there's other areas of growth as well. How would you prioritize that? Because we're not going to have the money to do everything.
True.
Yeah. And so, what areas would you prioritize?
So definitely, a lot of the things that are currently on people's mind, is the library project, the police department expansion.
I'll ask you about that in a few minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah, all of that's on people's minds.
Something that just popped up. I guess I didn't, brief you about this when we talk about the liquor election.
that was something that meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah, but really, it's about like what are some of the things that one is a high priority for a large number of residents. Like if, there's one, I'm just, making figures up here, but if there was like one guy who wanted a new library, but there were two people who wanted to make sure the police department got expanded, properly, then there's more people for that. So we're going to prioritize that, or at least that's the way that I imagine.
Well, can I interject here?
Yeah.
Is it strictly based on what the people want more? I mean, sometimes you may have to make a decision based on, I'm sorry, but this is actually more critical.
No, it is. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a balance, right? You look at what most people look at, but then it's like, okay, well, with the growth of Burleson, for example, the police department kind of becomes very critical over time.
Oh yeah.
More people means more possible crime. The more officers we need, the more patrol we need, and so it's something that would definitely take precedence.
Well, that was a big issue because we had a bond election, we had X amount of money set aside. The police department comes back and says we need more, and they didn't get quite what they needed. And some people were pretty upset by that, but they did get more, but they didn't get everything, and some people were upset. How are you going to deal with upset people about that? Because there was a 5-2 vote, and I don't know how you would have voted, but how would you, let's say you were a part of that 5, what would you tell people?
It's always going to be a delicate balance to deal with the people who are happy and unhappy. You're never going to do something that 100% of people are going to be happy about. I wish that would be great. But really just, I want the people to know that even if you and I maybe disagree on a decision that I make, it's not personal. It doesn't mean that I don't, value your opinion. It's just that after evaluating, all of the different pieces of information that I may have, I made a determination that we needed to go the other way.
Yeah, your email box will get full on some of these issues. I mean, I've gotten to know some of the council people, and I know what diligence they go through to make these decisions. And sometimes the answer is not what people want to hear, and I understand that. Sometimes it's not what I want to hear. I mean, I was taught in these schools all these times. So sometimes a school board make a decision. I'm like, what were they thinking? But once I kind of took a couple steps back, retired, did this show, I could see a bit more of the thinking behind some of these issues. But still, people get pretty upset, I guess, if they think that this is something that the city needs to be prioritizing, and it didn't seem like they are. But from your seat, you're going to have to be able to explain to them, no, well, I understand your point of view, but these are also equally valid. Most things that when people come for requests to city council, most of the requests are valid. There's very few frivolous ones or whatnot. But that governing is part of choosing between which valid choice you're going to have to make and which valid choice you're going to have to set aside for another time.
Yep.
That's the one reason why I'd have a hard time serving in this kind of capacity, because, I build relationships and I want to tell people, yes, if I can, but you're going to have to tell people no. And this might include people well.
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of do that already in my professional job.
Yeah, okay.
Like, just kind of in consulting in general. Sometimes clients come to us with very good requests. And it's just like, I'm sorry, but that's not the best way to do that. And sometimes, at least the difference between government and my job is sometimes they insist and you have to do it because they're paying us to do something. But a lot of the time it's, hey, this is not the best way to do this. There's a better way to do it. I value your opinion. I get what you're trying to accomplish. But there is a better way to do this, at least what we think, based on all of the information that we have. So, I have to deal with people who disagree with my decisions already. So I'm really just like, let's scale that up a little bit into government. And I think I can, at least in a perfect world, I feel like I could at least have good outreach to the people who disagree with me.
Well, the council right now seems to be working pretty well.
Yep.
It seems to be, whatever head knocking they do it behind closed doors in executive session. But they seem to be working pretty well in an open fashion. But sometimes, they don't always get what they want, and that's fine. That's part of governing. But do you see yourself integrating into that group pretty well?
Yeah, I can get along with anybody. And
have you met some of the other people on the council?
No, unfortunately, I have not. But I have tremendous respect for them. I mean, one of the bigger reasons that I chose to do it this year is because place 3, the incumbent, wasn't running,
right?
And I love what the council has done for the city. I love the new things that we're getting in the city. I love the upgrades that we're making in the city. So I didn't really want to say, hey, I want to unseat one of you, because I kind of agree with all of you.
Yeah.
I like what you're doing. So when I saw, that place 3 was no incumbent, I have nothing against Alexa. I watched her on your podcast last week or 2 weeks ago.
It roughly is.
And, I think that regardless of who wins this race, I think Burleson's in good hands. I think she would be great.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. I know that I have very little concern this go around about contentious elections. We've had them before, and I don't think this is going to be one of them. If I could give you some advice, there are a couple people on the council that'd be more than glad to give you some time. Like Larry Scott, it's on there, and he's been, a real significant force on that city council. He can tell you what's going on. There's several others that probably give you their time. Victoria would, Dan McClendon would, the mayor would. So, they're all willing to give their time for a newbie to kind of understand what's going on.
Yep.
There's a couple issues, though, that have kind of got attention, let's say, on social media. One is the possibility of liquor stores coming to Burleson. Now, I'm on the record saying I think this is something we need, not because I want to get my booze quicker and easier. That's not it. It's because it as you may or may not know, as a restaurant, you can only buy from within the county. And we only have one legitimate supplier down in Alvarado, and he charges the restaurants here retail prices, if not more. I mean, basically he has them literally over a barrel.
Yeah.
And I think for the sake of our restaurants, we need to do that. Now, you said you went to the hearing about that?
No, I was. So last week was my wife's Irma and mine anniversary. So we were actually in D.C. So I wasn't back in time to go to it, but I watched it the next day. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you on that. But I also, people are going to drink. People are going to buy liquor. Mm-hmm. We tried to stop that about 100 years ago. Didn't go very well.
Well, it was a spectacular success, yes.
Yeah, for some people.
Well, here's the thing, that we have a specs coming in on 1187, 135, and they say, well, that's close enough. Well, and okay, sure, but it's not helping our restaurants because that's in Tarrant County.
It's also not helping our community because tax dollars aren't.
Yeah, it's also in Fort Worth.
And so, I mean, and not only that, but like, some people live a little bit far away from that. Mm-hmm. Not that I condone people drinking and driving, but that's one of the things people are going to do. And the further away your liquor store is, the more likelihood that that's going to happen. Well, I still disagree with that.
I disagree with that because most people don't go to the liquor store and just to drink. They go to bars for that.
Yeah.
Okay. And we already have bars.
We do have bars. Yeah.
And so, but this also would probably change some of the aspects of that. Now, from what I understand, the potential or proposed zoning ordinances would limit to a minimum or more of 7,500 square feet.
Yep.
Which basically would eliminate a lot of the smaller ones. How do you see that?
So in the meeting, it seemed like they had agreed on at least reducing that minimum to 5,000 square foot. It's really kind of like a 50-50 thing, right? So I definitely want like the mom and pop style stores to be able to succeed and, come up and really just help our community. But at the same time, when I look at liquor stores in other areas, the bigger ones feel and look safer, right? Just because they're better well lit. They have more people.
They're in a probably more prominent location.
Yeah, they're probably in a more prominent location. And so not that I have anything against like people who maybe just want to open up like a, 2,000 square foot, mom and pop liquor store. It just feels like if one of the biggest complaints it felt like on the council meeting was, kind of the safety aspect. One of the council members made a comment that they don't want to see, eventually steel bars on windows. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we don't, but I feel like if the liquor stores are way too small, then you have a higher possibility of crime.
I'm of that opinion as well. I understand what that's kind of said what I was thinking as well. You don't want to be exclusive of people wanting to be an entrepreneur and all this other business, but these smaller stores are, first of all, they're not going to be in prominent locations because they won't be able to afford a prominent location.
Yeah. Won't be able to afford like the security, the cameras.
Right. And they wouldn't be able to like be on, in more public view, shall we say. Whereas a Total Wine or something similar to that has the wherewithal to maintain. And, I've been in Total Wine in Fort Worth more than once, and it's, it's not, I don't feel like, I'm taking any risks.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was going to, some cut rate store, on the edge of Fort Worth, I don't know, a little heightened anticipation, shall we say, anxiety, maybe is a better word.
A little bit more, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, and so I agreed with the idea. Let's limit it to a certain size. Again, the counter argument is valid, but there you are as a council member, you're going to have to make that choice.
Yep.
And will it pass or not? you know, yeah, you obviously weren't around here, and your wife was in high school. But we had a liquor election to allow for bars, really, liquor by the drink, and also beer and wine in Johnson County grocery stores or Burleson, Johnson County, because as we know, having about 10 or 15% in Tarrant County, they have their own set of rules practically.
It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, well, Albertsons on Allsbury is the only place. Well, there's a couple of gas stations. You could get beer or wine. And then they had a liquor election to allow it here in the Burleson, Johnson County part, and it failed the first time. And then it passed the second time. And that's what allowed for HEB, because we had several stores said, we're not coming if we can't sell beer and wine. So that allowed for HEB to come in. That allowed for Fresco's and others to come in. Mambo's and Fish City and Texas Bar, you name it. All these things came about because of that. Yeah. I personally think it's something we need because of the restaurant situation.
Yeah. And again, I mean, like I said, people are going to drink and might as well keep that tax revenue in Burleson instead of it's in, we have a Specs, and I love Specs. I mean, that's not saying, to anybody here that's listening, Mr. Crisper, he drinks a lot.
No.
I'm a big purveyor of fine Scotch, and Specs happens to have a good selection.
Yeah, you go. Well, there you go. And I've seen some of the prices in that, so it's definitely is a expensive habit. So
it is, much to my wife's chagrin.
Yeah. But there's other issues as well along with that. Of course, the police would have their comment about it. What is it going to increase crime? Is it going to increase traffic problems or whatever else? So that this is a situation again the council is going to have to resolve as best they can.
Yeah,
and that's an issue.
One of the things that Victoria talked about on your podcast the last time she was on was really like, yeah, we want to bring as many new developments, many new restaurants, new places to have fun entertainment options to Burleson, but at the end of the day, there's a big difference between just bringing in a business and then allowing them or having the infrastructure needed for them. Like how are they going to get deliveries, right? That's what she was mentioning,
right?
The big trucks that may be needed to deliver stuff to them. A lot of that is a lot of thought that has to go into all of those things that some people wouldn't know that goes into it. That's like, hey, we want this new restaurant. Okay, great, but how's it going to affect everything else around it?
It's true, and along with the expansion issues, one of the conversation pieces you might say we've had is about the possibility anyway of a new library in City Hall. And part of the discussion has to do with the expense, of course, and how it would affect our debt levels. But another part of it is where it's located.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
A few. I'm not particularly thrilled with like the idea of moving it to the west side of Burleson. I agree wholeheartedly that the huge amount of growth that Burleson's going to have is going to be over there. I mean, Chisholm Summit, the master plan community, I think they're aiming for right now over 3,000 residential units. I think the exact number is 3,066. It's a lot of people. Now, I would definitely say like an annex maybe would be great on that side of town. But one of the arguments I've heard about moving it was, okay, well, if we move it to the west side of town, then the east side of town people, have to drive further. And I'm not particularly thrilled with the idea of being unfair to anybody. But like the critical things that people would need to go to City Hall often for, maybe put an annex over on that side of the town once, the whole master plan community is done. I don't necessarily think we should move the entirety of City Hall, though.
Yeah, but the library and the City Hall, they seem to be thought of as like they're both moving
together, yeah.
But it's not necessarily true. I mean, you can put the library over there and keep City Hall where it is. My personal feeling about the City Hall, I like for it to stay where it is because it's connected to the plaza and it's connected to Old Town and things of that nature. Now, they need some expansion. There's no question because they're on top of each other practically over there. As far as the library itself, the that's a different conversation, and I don't know if I have all the answers on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a hard thing, especially with the ballooning cost of it. I think it's something like by the time that it's able to even break ground on it, I think it's going to cost something like 90+ million.
No, it's going to be expensive, no doubt.
It's a lot. But again, with growth of Burleson, I mean, we'll need it. Our current library is very functional, but it's old.
Well, it is overcrowded as well, because I mean they do a lot of things there.
They do.
A lot of people think of libraries, like people my age think of libraries as going to check out books or whatever, but they do so much more than that.
Oh, they do a ton, especially they were a saving grace, and they still really are for a lot of people, like during the big COVID pandemic and everything. Like a lot of people, you can go there and get like Wi-Fi hotspots to help you connect to the internet if you can't afford it, so you can do your schoolwork or do research. I mean, things like that are just absolutely useful for everybody. Like you said, it's not just books anymore.
Well, the issue about the library being on the other side of town, among other issues, is that we as a city don't want to create sub-cities, if you will, within the community. You go to Fort Worth, you go to any bigger city, and they got areas that are almost like a community unto themselves, and they're not a part of the larger community, and except for certain ways. And we've always tried to have maintained one Burleson, so to speak. And that's harder and harder to do. I mean, when they split up BHS and put built Centennial, I'm sure Irma has mentioned that to you.
She has, yeah.
Yeah, that impacted the city quite a bit.
It's a big deal from the way she described it.
It was, and it did impact the continuity of the community and the unity of the community to some degree, because you had competing high schools, and not just for sports, but for resources and attention, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that same thing happened in my hometown. Funny enough, we were one high school, but we had expanded to 2,500 students in a building meant for about 1,700. We had about 30 trailers out front of the school that just kind of helped the overflow. Then they built the second school, and it was a thing.
Well, and so a lot of people who've been here through that don't want to go through that again. They want to avoid having the west side versus the east side, and because that would cause a lot of competition for it. Bill Janish has a long comment there. I'm going to read it when it gets to my phone, because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So I'll get to that in just a second. It takes about all the questions up there. I get about 10 seconds after that. Okay, let's see what Bill says. The more growth we experience and the larger roads will create lots more stormwaters and flooding. Professionals have been quoted to say it would take $150 million to upgrade our current water system and drainage system. Current water drainage system. I'll say it right. Burleson doesn't have the money to even get started correcting this. We need to be able to sustain the ideas and the planning. Too many floodwaters destroying properties and damaging homes. That those are the kind of long-term things you have to pay attention to.
Yep. And I've actually started looking. I have a page on water in my vote book.
Well, then let's hear it. I don't want to waste your notes. Go ahead.
No. It's again, I said this earlier. Not a civil engineer.
Right.
Don't know how some things work. But actually, I looked into Burleson's comprehensive plan that they did a couple of years ago, and one of the interesting things that I saw on there was that 81% of people actually mentioned that they would consider rainwater harvesting if incentivized. And I mentioned that not only because could that help with rainwater runoff, flooding, but it also could help reduce our reliance on other municipalities' water over time.
Exactly.
They did a study, and I know it's a much larger city, but they did a study in Santa Monica on what would happen if the entire city, participated in that. And they found that 75% of all overall water needs would be covered.
This sounds kind of like a silly idea sometimes, but after we have a big rainstorm, I see all the standing water, and I think, I wish there's a way we could collect that and use that, like in the summertime when we're going through our hot droughts. use it for maintaining our landscaping and whatever else.
You could use all of that that harvested water. I think scientists refer to it as gray water, which is, I don't like that term. It sounds weird. But you could use it for everything: irrigation, laundry, dishes, washing your vehicles. You can use it as toilet water.
Well, it's just. I know it sounds silly, but it's like we need to have like a 2 or 3. Like septic tank type trucks, and they go and they collect the water,
just like vacuuming up the water.
Right, but I don't know how this would work. But I mean, I'm not like I said, I'm not a hydraulic engineer, but just some way that we could use that water. I'm not really a big environmentalist guy, but it does bother me when environmental opportunities go by the wayside.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's the kind of thing also City Council has to think of, because I mean, I don't know if you. Until Bill brought it up here, I don't know if you met Bill Janish before, but
we have actually spoken quite a bit on Facebook. He was one of the first people that reached out to me, actually.
Okay, but he's pretty active.
He is, yeah.
But a lot of people don't think about this. The first thing, if you ask them, the first thing that comes to mind, what the city needs, will say roads and all this other infrastructure needs and things like that. But you as a city council person, let's be politically correct here, you're going to have to be thinking along those lines.
Yep.
It's like encountering things the city needs that maybe the citizens aren't aware that they need yet. So that's part of it. As far as the police situation, I might want to say that because I want to have you again on the show. I'm trying to get all the candidates. I still the last couple of weeks have been absolutely hell. Not in a bad way, but at the Allard house, because I started a contract job and I haven't really been paying as much attention as I needed to other things, plus the other aspects of life, shall we say. So I'd like to have you on again. So we'll save it for that topic.
Okay.
I've been negligent in reaching out to Mr. McAnally. It's not because I don't want him on the show. It's just like I said, the last 2 weeks have not been conducive. When I think about it, it's too late at night to appropriately text somebody, and then when I have time to text somebody, I think about something else. So I'm going to strive to get him on as well. And like I said, Miss Bedeker is going to be on again, and we'll get you on again. But as far as campaigning, what are you going to be doing about that? I mean, how are you going to campaign? What are your processes?
Definitely one of the things you mentioned is, my opponent, she definitely has a little bit more exposure because she's already been involved in government, which, again, I respect all of that. And regardless, I do want to mention that regardless of if I win this election or not, I plan on being involved either, on the city council if I win, and if not, then, any commissions or any other thing that I can get involved with. But as far as campaigning, like really trying to be as visible as possible to everybody. I know nobody really likes signs, but I actually just picked up my signs 2 days ago from a business off of Boone Road over off of Owlsbury. And I have stakes arriving today, so I'll be able to start putting signs out. But not only that, but like I'm trying to set up as many appearances as possible. I'm going to be talking to the Burleson Police Officers Association at Grumps on March the 20th. I think Victoria is actually going to be there as well, so I'll meet with her. All of the city events. There's I know some things they don't really want politics on, and I don't really intend on crashing that. It's not what I want to do. But definitely try to just be visible. Where if people want to, ask me a question, ask it. And I also, some of the, there's a lot of people who kind of are more old school in Burleson that want to see me in person, and that's what I'm trying to do. But for the people who are more new school, shall we say, I'm as visible as I can be online. I have my campaign page that I want you to message if you can, or ask me any questions. I have a website that kind of doubles as my personal portfolio for my job and as kind of like a little blog for some of my thoughts. So just being as visible as I possibly can.
There's a couple of events that, I don't know if they're made for campaigning, but if you want visibility, like that pub crawl,
Yep.
that's a good place to be visible. Also, I know that the farmers market starts up pretty soon, and they're not really big on people going through the crowds and handing out cards and stuff like that. But I've seen candidates there with a table or a booth of some sort.
Yeah.
So if you contact Chaz Forrester, you can find out what his thinking is. I think I could speak for when I say he's not going to be really excited about people going through the crowds and while they're shopping.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to crash these things if they don't want me there.
But if you contact him, he'll tell you what the situation is, yes or no, or here's the parameters of what you can do. But it is highly visible.
Yeah.
There's other things. Sherry Scott says, I'll take a sign from my yard if you have any. Sherry Scott is Larry Scott's wife.
We have.
You've met? Okay.
We haven't met, but we've spoken a little bit on Facebook.
Yes,
so.
and she's also involved with blessing boxes here in town. You may have seen some of these boxes, these stands at like the library and a couple other places, or about several other places, and they stock them with food for people who need it. It's a great program.
Yeah, no,
that's the kind of people Burleson are. I really do think so. I mean, we got a few people that are, throw a few fastballs, shall we say, high and hard on Facebook, but that's not really the majority. Most people in Burleson really love this community, and the nonprofits here are spectacular.
I love it. Yeah. I absolutely love that. That is that is one of the bigger things that you will never see where I grew up. People just live there. They don't care that they live there.
Also, Jackie Jones, who is also very active in the local politics scene on Facebook, particularly. She'll take a sign as well. So there you go.
Awesome.
There you got a couple signs out there already.
Appreciate it.
But it's
I will contact you.
Yeah, but that's one of the best things about Burleson is I have the nonprofits on this show quite a bit, and I'm humbled by their service to this community.
Yeah,
and they really, you don't get that very many communities. You really don't.
It's rare. It's rare. Even whenever Irma and I lived in Frisco, that city has exploded in growth.
Oh, yeah.
We used to make a joke that every time we saw an empty spot of land in Frisco, we're like, oh, they're going to build on it. There's an empty spot of land that's for sale. And it's not far off from the truth. I think there are over 220,000 people up there now. It's crazy. But it some of the places in Frisco felt homey. Like they have a downtown area that felt homey, but then you had, like you said earlier, like pockets of it that just feel like you're in a city.
Right, and that's what it is in Plano. I mean, I go there to visit a friend and all this other stuff. It's not nostalgic for me because it wasn't there when I was there. All we had in Plano when I graduated high school in 1980 were houses and grocery stores. And, and as far as like, interesting places to go shop or eat or anything like that, we had to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
And when I first moved here, same thing. I had to go to Fort Worth. Now everything you have is here. And Old Town is spectacularly different. And it's a great location.
Looks beautiful, though.
Well, it really is. I mean, back again, 30 years ago, we had a barbecue joint there. We had a antique mall and I think an appliance store, and that's about it. And so... and a malt shop, I forget them too. But it was just nothing like you see now in the growth. And so that's one of the challenges of being on the city council. Now, here's the drill I do for all the candidates. This camera right here is the one that's most directly on you, right here. Take a couple minutes and make a commercial.
Yeah. I am Brandon Crisp. I'm running for Burleson City Council in place 3. I would love your support. I really love the community, even though I've not lived here as long as some people. I've lived here going on about 3 years now. So it's a testament to how much I love this community that I'm trying to get involved in the capacity that I am. Please reach out to me. You can contact me on my website. It's brandoncrisp.dev. Sorry, I wish I could have the .com, but somebody else owns it. And also on Facebook, I'm an open book, as far as I can be, rather. So, for sure.
There you go. Okay, I just went out for a minute.
Yeah, went out.
Yeah, well, that's fun of technology, I guess. But anyway, I wish you the best of luck. And like I said, after we leave here, we'll set up another time. Jackie, if you're still watching, I hope you are. I will be reaching out to Mr. McAnally today. like I said, the last couple of weeks is like when I had time to think about it. It wasn't a good time to do it, an appropriate time to text and make a deal. And when I did have the appropriate time, I was swamped with other stuff. It's been a full couple of weeks, but I'm going to do my best to reach all the opponents and candidates. Rather, that's the best way to put it. Candidates. So there you are. Like I said, wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's obvious that you want to serve. If it doesn't work out this time, we'd like to see you again.
Yeah, I love to to talk about any kind of topic. So.
Yeah, well, and we could, my advice, if it doesn't work out, is stay involved. Because we need people like you involved. And I'm really glad that you and Ms. Bedecker are going to have you're going to make it a difficult choice for us. Let's put it that way, because it's we're going to have to make it. This is the kind of election we want.
Yep.
That we have to make a difficult choice.
Yeah, and I've sent her a Facebook message. I know she's in real estate, so probably a lot of people send you Facebook messages, but I think mine went into her message request. So if you're watching, I would love to just talk with you.
Okay, well, I bet that'll happen, because it's. Like I said, I feel good about this selection. All right, Taylor, thank you. We're going to be back in an hour with Doughboy Donuts. I don't know if you know that place.
I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Do we know if he's bringing samples?
I don't know if he is.
He better be.
I was a little reluctant to...
bringing samples. Can I hang out on your couch?
All right. Well, anyway, you have some supporters here on the screen, obviously, and so there you go. And we'll see you guys. I'll see you in about an hour, and then next week I'll just go over what's on next week later. So thank you, Brandon, for showing up.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You betcha. And we'll see y'all later.